It's a very short presentation, so I would like to read it out. Should I do it? Okay. Living healthily and long. This has been one of the primal urges of man. Initially, all his efforts to fight teeming infections and diseases surrounding him have been to no avail. But man did not give up and kept struggling for a solution. And finally, the French invented the word and concept hygiene, and with it developed the whole idea of keeping oneself and the ambience clean. It bears special mention that this meant the beginning of organized systematic sanitary practices. The latter transformed the world. That is to say, man began living longer and healthier. Attainment of basic hygienic standards turned out to be one of the hallmarks of the advancement of the modern human society. In contrast, the lack or absence of it is acknowledged as being a mark of a failed society. Against this background, sanitation became a goal of deeper sociological inquiries. It's a pity that India has yet to imbibe the idea of general hygiene and sanitation. However, our refusal to access even the most elementary civilizational gains has only reduced us to the status of a sick society in the literal sense of the term. India has been ranked as a notoriously unclean society. Management of human feces, in particular, has been abysmal. This can only be put down to the lack of toilet facilities. All of us know that public crapping is a common thing in this country. We betray the total ignorance of social hygiene. There has been a surfeit of studies conducted on this aspect of our society, and all of them have yielded the single conclusion that dirt management barely figures in the Indian scheme of things. So the country reeks of waste and dirt. Nobel laureate V.S. Naipaul, when he visited India in the early 50s, was appalled by the squalor he saw lying all around. He wrote a book, An Area of Darkness, in which he says, Indians defecate everywhere, and one sees human excreta on roadside, home side, and in some every side. He has described India as a defecating society. I wish the book had been translated into Hindi. One can draw a whole list of international dignitaries who have equally barbecued incredible India's amaze by their costly comments on its lack of sanitation. Last year, I was in Patna with a group of filmmakers from Europe. I was assisting them as a local consultant. And it was a pleasure working with these wonderful Europeans and hearing them sing praise for India and our beautiful Bihar. But soon I was in for a shock when I had the unenviable task of answering their persistent question why Indians are adept at the preservation of dirt and loving it. They had become worn out for their estate, inspecting stubborn, decayed and voluminous dirt all over the city. They were unhappy also because it was something that had compromised the experiences they wanted to take back home. One of them said, this simply meant Indians had a very low self-esteem. I kept mum as I had no answer. I had an American student who lived in an upscale neighborhood in South Delhi, not far away from the ring road. One day, she looked depressed and overcome with a deep hatred of this country. When I talked to her in detail, she had to daily negotiate a mass of human excreta lying on the road when going to her workplace. The dirt was forbidding and all over. That the dirt existed in this country's capital passed her comprehension, and she called India the dirtiest country in the world. Another student of mine from Manchester, who was riled by the sheer lack of basic civic sense on the part of the residents in the colony he lived in. It was difficult for him to understand why the residents themselves keep dirt littering the park with foul-smelling dirt, where they and their ladies sit and gossip. From a young man from Stuttgart, Germany, who recently visited India as a tourist, he has spent about 20 days in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. He had nice experiences wherever he went, but he met a scores of interesting people, especially in Kerala. He was, however, shocked about the huge problem of waste that weighed down this country. He had not expected it to be so bad because he was an Indophile, and he was appalled. According to him, this India faces an enormous challenge in this regard. In Nizamuddin in Delhi, a girl was shot dead when she objected to a man urinating in front of her house. The man simply could not abide the girl's audacity to tell him off. Instead of making amends for his dirty act and indecent exposure he had indulged in, he went away only to come back with a gun to kill the girl who had asserted her right to cleanliness. The incident was instant copy for the media, including the international portion of it. One theory that is often advanced is that while Indians exhibit very high standards of personal hygiene, they are only a little wanting in public cleanliness. This is a theory that does not seem to stand as critical. There is a close relationship between the two, and sanitation happens only when the two meet. The Euro-American belt is an example. This part of the world enjoys both public cleanliness and personal health. It's entirely thanks to their efficient and quick dirt management. Apart from the very few civilizational diseases, most of the diseases that seriously challenge our health are wholly absent there. The state is always willing to invest resources in keeping the environment clean. The West, in my opinion, and I have been several times to Europe and America, the West is antiseptically clean, and it is said one can eat from a road without being exposed to any infection. Maintenance of this kind of cleanliness is no mean feat considering the world's highest per capita waste output of since death. The less about us, the better. There are millions of men and women still working as manual waste and their continuing to engage in this abominable profession is an annoying commentary on our sense of priority as a nation. It is the ubiquitous stinking dirt that prompted one of our union ministers recently to say that India could easily annex noble laurels in being the dirtiest country on the planet. There is another oft-repeated theory that puts forward as the poverty as the explanation for India's hurt. The theory has no basis either. There are a number of countries poorer than us that have much better sanitary conditions. To our utter embarrassment, some of these countries exist in our very close neighborhood. One can easily mention impoverished Burma and Bangladesh, for example. That Pakistan happens to be still cleaner only compounds our sense of humiliation. There is yet another theory that on occasions get deployed to defend India's dirt, and this is the transcendental theory that argues Indians strive for an elevated spiritual cleanliness and do not give a fig about the mundane cleanliness. According to the theory, Indians consider this world as an apparent truth and thus as an illusion. Their preoccupation with the absolute truth and a different kind of purity is barely appreciated, creating incomprehension about them. However, the theory is dismissed, in my opinion, as nonsense unlimited and as a defense of the indefensible. A saying that bears recall in this context is, cleanliness is next to godliness. Now I'm concluding. All these theories are groundless and merely a collection of illogic non sequiturs and hotwas. They don't help us understand and fix the problem at all. Even theories drawing on Indian size and population do not seem to work, as there are abundant facts to refute them. Based on these discussions, it seems our relation to dirt is entirely due to our primary inculturation. This becomes even a bigger problem as changing culture and mindset is difficult and time-consuming. Should we then despair of ever seeing the end of this problem? The answer is no. India is not bare of ingenuity, experiments, and geniuses. Dr. Bindeswar Pathak, the founder of Sulabh International, saw it. When appalled by his country's squalor, he did not weave theories, nor did he withdraw into the academia's cocoons. Instead, he made a resolution to make a difference. The rest of the story is too well known to repeat to merit reputation. I would close by saying the good work he has started on a modest scale has expanded over the years, acquiring the status of a social revolution. What he has done is a mighty step in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shri Nath Chaudhry ji. May I request